Welcome to Extra Minutes, the 60 Minutes podcast. I'm Tara Brown, and this is my colleague, Laura Sparks.
Hello, Tara.
Welcome back, 2026.
Yes.
Here we go.
Yes, here we go.
Yeah, and we're going with something a little different this year well, it's not really that different. You might remember, I certainly remember Peter Harvey's mailbag.
I do remember very
which
well.
was a very popular part of our program for many years.
I was adopted, and I think the young mothers in your show were brave and selfless, giving their babies to families that they feel will give them the best life possible. Out of a lot of heartbreak, some good, of course, does come. The babies win, their adoptive families win, and the young girls get a chance to rebuild their lives, to start again.
Well, now we're reintroducing it with a modern twist. So where people used to send in mail, we're now looking at, listening to, reading out, dissecting social media messages. And we get a lot on this program, don't we?
Yeah, well, that's what's changed, isn't it? We used to get emails or phone calls.
Or letters.
Or letters even, going back a bit. But now it's mainly social media messages. So.
Yeah. And, of course, we appreciate mainly, and all types and tones of messages are welcome, and
Yes.
so it doesn't have to be a fan fest, and often it isn't, which is something we have to put up with and digest. But there is a lot of support from social media in terms of being in contact with us, but some stories generate more interest than others, which is also very natural. And one of those was our story on forced adoptions and looking at the role of the drug stilbestrol and what impact that has had.
The nervous and proud parents-to-be at the hospital nursery, about to claim this young life as their own.
By adoption, this child will escape the handicap of its birth. His real mother will almost certainly never set eyes on him again.
The girl can see her baby at least once, but not hold it or feed it.
We were contacted by one person and it began from there, and it was just a roll-on effect, and we realised that this issue had huge implications, not only in Australia but around the world, because the drug was given to women for all sorts of things. The women that we focused on were the women who'd been forced to take it because they'd been forced to give up their babies and they had to lose their breast milk. So they were given this drug to stop the breast milk. But other women took it to stop miscarriages. And so our story sort of took us around the world telling those stories, didn't it?
Yeah, the unique thing about the Australian examples was that they had never been studied.
That's
because when they were taking the drug after they'd given birth to their babies, in other places that also happened, but it was also used as a drug during pregnancy. And so the impact on those unborn babies has been studied and debated for quite some time. In Australia, because the women were not pregnant with those babies, they're a different group. But what we've found in our story was that those future generations, you didn't have to be pregnant at the time of taking that drug to impact the future generations with the side effects, is the claim.
Yeah, the future children that they had. So not the one that they had to give up, it was the ones that came after were affected. And we spoke to some of those children, didn't we?
Yeah, and you might remember that during that story, those women were just asking for some understanding and some research so they could understand what might come next. And if it wasn't the drug, then it's not the drug. But their anecdotal experiences were compelling.
And we had overwhelming responses. Like, we knew it had been used widely, but I was even surprised at the amount of responses that we got.
Yeah, and a lot of that, we'll have a look at that feedback now, but a lot of that feedback relates to people who feel that they were caught up in this themselves.
That's right.
And this was, finally something that shone light on something that had been ignored for a long time or misunderstood.
Yeah.
So this is one response. Saddest thing I've seen in a long time. Another, the stories that come out of Australia are mind-blowing. I thought the US and UK were bad, but somehow it's worse there. This is one of the cruelest stories I've ever heard. Is it worse in Australia than around the world, Laura?
I don't think so. I think it's still coming out in the UK though. It has come out in the US and there's been many, many studies done. But again, not on those that took it to dry up their milk. It was those that took it for miscarriage. So they are different studies. But in the UK, they're well behind us. And I found that during the research, that it just had not been reported on.
Right.
Over there.
And was that a willful thing, or just slipped through the cracks, or they didn't have the same impact?
I don't think the women, and again, we're talking about forced adoption, the women that took it after they'd been forced to adopt. I don't think those women had the courage to stand up until more recently, and only after there'd been stories that came out of Ireland and also a few stories that had come out of Australia. So they sort of started standing up and saying, well, hang on, we took that too. You know, what happened to us? What happened to our future children? And some of those future children had reported similar issues with cancers, particularly around the cervix area, miscarriages, quite a few, and other cancers associated with the pituitary gland and adrenal glands. I mean, there's a whole range of illnesses that are associated with taking this drug.
Yes, and that's what some of our watchers and listeners identified in their messaging to us. My mother took DES, which is Stilbestrol. She died at 83 from heart failure. She took it to dry up her breast milk. But this woman then says, her daughter says, I had a hysterectomy at 25 after 2 C-sections, cesareans. My cervix had precancerous cells at 14. Cryosurgery destroyed my cervix's ability to dilate, and many battles with endometriosis, ovarian cysts, and painful periods. Then she talks about the next generation. My oldest daughter
So
had
we're now
breast
3.
cancer.
We're up
That's
to
right.
3.
And cannot have children. And my youngest had 3 complicated pregnancies. Now, in our story, we spoke to an endocrine expert, Dr. Peter Myers, and he, chillingly, I thought, said that for every generation that's been tested, the impact of an endocrine disruptor can be seen.
Yes. And that's the thing about endocrine disruptors. They cross over into the genes and change the genes. So when you have a child, that changed gene is handed over onto that child as well, that's what an endocrine disruptor is.
They change how genes are turned on and off. And if they get turned on or off at the wrong time, bad stuff happens. Sometimes when it's turned on, it turns on forever, for as many generations as we've been able to follow.
We interviewed Wendy Pankhurst, and she took it. Obviously, she'd been forced to adopt her firstborn child out. She took it, but her daughter, who she had next, Catherine, had huge problems with endometriosis.
Late onset puberty, and she also, and she had migraines, and she also had asthma, which is interesting. Not a cancer, obviously, but something linked with endocrine disruptors, according to Dr. Myers.
That's right, and so it's a lot of immune disorders seem to come from taking these endocrine disruptors, which Stilbestrol is definitely an endocrine disruptor. I don't think that's disputed now. It's just whether or not it's affected the future generations, which is why all the women were crying out for studies.
This woman sounds like, she's seen our story and it's quite revelatory for her. Her response is, oh my God, OMG, I just fell on this 60 Minutes that I watch all the time, and I'm so shocked because I'm a DS daughter. She's now 61 and never knew where to turn to get information and try to get so desperately to get the entire story. I had cervical cancer at 13, lost my only daughter 6 hours after birth, and now have a spinal disease, emphysema. Oh my God. It's better you stop here. Hysterectomy with a double oophorectomy and much more, but don't want to list everything.
Yeah, no, it's devastating.
Well, this one, I'm a DS daughter. I had no idea what I was watching. I'm shaking. This happened to me through my mother. Prior to me, she miscarried, was given DES.
Here's another one actually from an American woman. She says, my friend in Australia shared this with me. Stilbestrol wasn't banned for humans in the US until 1971. I was born in 1962 to a teenage mother and put up for adoption. So this is all in the United States. This investigation makes me wonder if my birth mother who passed away in 1998 from kidney disease. Kidneys were one of the things that Dr. Pete Myers mentioned to us, this drug affects. So her mother died from kidney disease and wasn't diabetic and was given this drug by the doctors knowing it was carcinogenic. And she also has a lot of health issues. So that story has never been told in the United States, the fact that the mothers were forced to give up their children and then given this stilbestrol. The only story that's ever been told over there is the mothers that took it for miscarriage.
Right.
Yeah.
So very much like our Australian women, then there would be a group of women who obviously are affected and hopefully, are lobbying in some way, but it's just been ignored.
Totally ignored over there, and I don't know whether that's because there's a large conservative belt in the US, and no one wants to talk about forced adoptions over there.
Well, it's sort of like a double tragedy.
Yeah.
For many, wasn't it? Because, and we did cover that in our story, that these young girls, their only crime really was that some weren't even, but they were underage and unwed, and that seemed to be the key, that they were unwed, and that they had their babies taken away from them.
But they wanted those babies.
And they wanted those babies. And all these years later, the tragedy of that was still very raw.
I think they were in the wrong job. Yeah. Because I couldn't do it to an animal, let alone a human. I remember distinctly saying to the social worker, I can look after the baby.
You wanted the baby?
Yes. And I remember just couldn't stop crying. And she said, either you sign or you'll be here forever.
So that was part of our story, wasn't
Yes.
it? But then the second blow was that, having gone through that first awful experience, they then learn that their future children have been impacted.
By a drug they were forced to take.
Yes.
Then they did not know even what it was called, half of them. They were told, don't worry, love, just take it, it'll dry up your milk.
But what is so difficult to comprehend is that there were concerns about this drug at that time. It's not like we understand it when pharmaceutical companies and doctors, let's say on the main, are determined to help us. Medication is about making us better, not sick. Mm-hmm. The intention is to make us better. But with this drug, there was deep concern about it right from the beginning, and yet it was still being administered.
That's right. And it was banned in the US, I think, around 1971, but they continued to give it to women here in Australia till the late 70s, sometimes up into the early 80s.
This is a drug that has been declared carcinogenic.
Yes. Yeah.
They no longer feed it to chickens in case, it impacts on chickens and the humans who eat the chicken, but
they didn't care about these young women.
They didn't. And I think that you talked earlier about women in the UK finding the strength and courage to come forward. I think another element in our story, and possibly what our viewers have actually honed in on, is that there's so much secrecy around this because there's this ongoing shame. I mean, these girls were treated as if they were dirty criminals, and they feel that as they age, they're similarly being ignored and mistreated, and that they're shameful in some way.
And they've now got that terrible guilt that because of this drug they were forced to take, they've actually caused health concerns in their future children. And they're seeing those health concerns play out now as those children are in their 30s, 40s.
My youngest daughter has quite severe endometriosis, very severe. And I actually lost one of my daughters to breast cancer.
Two of my daughters had cancer at the same time, breast cancer and brain cancer. And I have a grandson. He had leukemia when he was about 6.
I do have grave concerns, especially for my daughter, who's now 52, that got juvenile arthritis when she was 11.
My subsequent daughter, she had precancer cells of SIN4 when she was only 20. And my son has not been able to have children.
My son has sarcoidosis and problems with his pancreas. That terrifies me. That absolutely terrifies me.
Oh, it was such a emotional story to tell, and it's really, I mean, it's terrible to hear some of these stories, and thank you for sending them to us. But it's also heartening to see that it had such an impact, because hopefully, information helps people.
It's interesting because we have quite a lot of responses from America here. And probably because it is a story that hasn't been told properly over there.
Oh, what about this one? I am a DES baby. I've had more than 6 types of cancers and multiple medical issues. They don't care I was DES. Just ignore that. No studies, no lawsuits, just silence. Which was so galling to the women that we interviewed. No one is ever held accountable, even to this very day. And again, it never fails to amaze and sicken me how many women have been mistreated and maltreated by the medical establishment throughout modern history all over the world.
That was one thing that got me as I was researching. I was trying to find a nurse or someone that had administered stillbirth trial to the women who had been forced to adopt their babies. The names that I found through various commissions of inquiry, all those women have now died. The one man that actually stood up for them all at those commissions of inquiry now has dementia and couldn't talk to us. So basically, you can't prosecute anyone anymore because it happened so long ago.
No. But, I think that's what I found interesting. There's certainly a lot of anger in this community and disbelief, but there's also just this request. They're not saying pay us out.
No.
They're not saying go to jail. They're just saying, can you study us? Can you tell us what our future holds, what the future generations of my family might face?
Yes.
I mean, that is not a big ask.
No.
We're in the last chapter, and I think we deserve to at least be treated with respect, because we have been basically poisoned.
For those who might say that what you're suffering is either random, environmental, or age-related, what do you say?
That's fine, but prove it. Prove it by showing us through this research that what we are being afflicted with and living with wasn't caused by that. Then you've won your argument. But if it was, then we've won ours.
I go back to Wendy because she did feature in our story. Not only is Wendy's daughter suffering terrible health side effects, there are some of Wendy's grandchildren that are now suffering side effects that are all related to this drug.
Well, that's what we believe, and that's what she wants to find out.
Yeah, a generational study is the only thing that's going to
yes.
find out exactly how that drug has affected those generations.
It's interesting how these women were in this position in the first place, and most of them found themselves forced to take these drugs when they were just teenagers, that they were unwed and pregnant, and all of a sudden they're finding themselves in homes for teen mums, working in laundries run by religious institutions. What some in our audience have picked up on is the religious role in or overtone to this message. To know that this all stemmed from religion is maddening. Practices, beliefs that are considered outdated to most people now. I mean, we had that incredible story of Lily Arthur.
Yes.
That, she was 16, just shy of 17, engaged.
To a 20-year-old man.
Yes, and she's legal. She's
legal, yeah.
She's of age, age of consent. They're living together. Her mum has helped establish the apartment that they're living in. And there's a raid at midnight. She's 6 weeks pregnant. Somebody's dobbed her in, and the police
charge her and put her in an unmarried mother's home run by a religious institution, and she had to work in a laundry whilst pregnant. But that happened to most of them. Most of them because their parents were embarrassed, or, society said it was wrong, and so they were hidden away in these unmarried mothers' homes run by churches. And made to feel like animals, some of them say. And especially when they gave birth.
Treated worse.
I was put into a cell at the South Brisbane Watch House, treated like a criminal.
Did you know that you were a criminal at that point?
I just thought I was a normal teenager, to be honest. I was madly in love with a handsome Ukrainian boy.
And was this a baby that you wanted?
It was a dream.
But it very swiftly turned into a nightmare when Lily was declared a ward of the state and detained at an unmarried mother's home, where she was made to work long hours in the laundry.
This is what was going on behind the scenes.
Decades later, Lily finally got hold of her hospital records. In black and white, the coldest and cruelest words this mother could read: baby for adoption, exposing the unilateral plan for Lily's newborn son.
You know, they hadn't even asked me was I adopting him or anything. So, you know, that decision was totally taken out of my hands right from the word go.
I mean, obviously, some girls had nowhere else to go, and that's what these institutions were there for as well. But then the next level of handing out these drugs to these girls, and they didn't have a choice. They were threatened, weren't they? That they had to take the medication and they had to sign the adoption papers. And they were told, if you don't sign these adoption papers, A, you're not getting out of here, or B, your child will go into foster care.
That's right. That's right. And some of them were so drugged they didn't know what they were signing.
Yes,
you know.
that's right.
But what is interesting is that the story is exactly the same in the United States. You know, it was churches running these unmarried mothers' homes. It was the public health system giving them these drugs. The same in the United Kingdom. It was quite orchestrated how they dealt with unmarried mothers, you know, globally.
Yes, it was. It sort of, here's the model.
Yes.
And let's follow it around the world.
Yeah.
And with such terrible ramifications.
Yeah.
And some had been reunited with their lost children. But even so, the damage had been done, and they were still hurting, weren't they? And for the person who'd been given up for adoption, as well as the mother who lost her child.
Yeah. Yeah.
A very painful episode in our history and the world's history, really. Well, I think that's a great response, and thank you so much for watching and for writing to us and sharing your experiences, and even if you weren't affected personally, your reactions to our story and to the women who put themselves out there very bravely. If you missed it and you'd like to see our original story, you can find it on YouTube or 9Now. Thanks again for your time.